All right, so the next one here, Putin's conditions for a peace deal with Ukraine. So Reuters reported on Thursday that Russia's demands for a peace deal in Ukraine include Ukrainian forces withdrawing from the Donbass, a guarantee that Ukraine won't join NATO, and for Ukraine to keep Western troops out of the country. Russian sources told Reuters that Putin had compromised on his initial conditions, which included the Ukrainian withdrawal from the territory in the southern Kherson and Zaporozhye oblasts. Under the current offer, Russia is willing to freeze the lines there, and this is what the other reports have said. And they're also willing to return the small amounts of territory that Russia controls in Kharkiv and Sumy and in like northeastern Ukraine. Zelensky has publicly rejected the idea of ceding the territory to Ukrainian forces. He's rejected the idea of ceding territory that Ukrainian forces still control. One of his aides seemed to suggest that they'd be willing to freeze the lines, which is a concession because, of course, Zelensky's position has been, we're not going to stop until we take back all the territory. But I think this is right. I mean, this is kind of what I've gathered from Russia's position. Again, they want the Donbass, no NATO, and no Western troops in Ukraine. And I think that's really going to be the big sticking point and what could make these negotiations fall apart is this push for security guarantees. So when it comes to NATO, the Trump administration has said that Ukraine is not joining NATO as part of any peace deal. But you still see like Mark Rutte, the NATO Secretary General, just this week, he said Ukraine is on an irreversible path to NATO membership. They're still pushing this. And when it comes to the territory, the Europeans are backing Zelensky's position that, no, we're not going to give up the Donbass. And then the Western troops thing, I mean, that's their whole thing right now it's like every day this week, there's been some statement from the UK or some grouping saying, we're gonna send troops to Ukraine, basically. So I think this deal that Russia is offering, I think it's workable. If Trump really needs to have the conviction to pursue it, which I don't think he really does. And then at the same time, would he, like, even if he really wanted to do it, would he be able to do it, by putting the pressure on Ukraine? Basically saying we're going to cut off all the weapons and intelligence. I mean, I think that would be enough to end the war because the Europeans are reliant on that stuff as well. So unfortunately, there's signs from Trump that he's not really going to squeeze them to make the deal. So the next one here, Trump signals support for Ukrainian attacks on Russian territory. So President Trump on Thursday suggested that he supports Ukrainian attacks on Russian territory in a provocative post on Truth Social, which came about a week after his summit with Putin. So the president wrote, quote, "It is very hard, if not impossible, to win a war without attacking an invader's country. It's like a great team in sports that has a fantastic defense but is not allowed to play offense. There is no chance of winning. It is like that with Ukraine and Russia. Crooked and grossly incompetent Joe Biden would not let Ukraine fight back, only defend. How did that work out? Regardless, this is a war that would never happen if I were president. Zero chance. Interesting times ahead," end quote. So, Biden gave Ukraine the green light to hit Russian territory with American-provided missiles last year. And that was a huge escalation. Russia responded by changing their nuclear doctrine and lowering the threshold for the use of nuclear weapons, really showing how serious that was. And then the other aspect of this is that all these Ukrainian drone attacks are ultimately supported by the U.S. The U.S. invested $1.5 billion in helping Ukraine's, start its domestic drone manufacturing program. The CIA was involved in that. And, there's been all sorts of reports saying that these Ukrainian drone attacks, they need U.S. NATO-provided intelligence, which I think, that's pretty clear. So they do, it is all ultimately supported by the U.S., but when it comes to actually like American missiles striking Russian territory, it's kind of a different ball game, a different kind of, more open escalation. So the fact that Trump's talking about that is not great. All right, so the next one here is Elensky wants Western security guarantees before Putin meeting. So another bad sign here. Zelensky is saying, he said on Thursday that he wants to have more clarity on what security guarantees the Western countries will give him before he agrees to meet with Putin. And what are they talking about? They're talking about sending troops to Ukraine. That's on the agenda. Trump has suggested that he backs it, that he would provide air power, air support. Um, and Russia has made clear it's just a non-starter. And Russia's saying that they want to be involved in the talks on security guarantees. And again, I mentioned this a lot, that back to that 2022 draft deal, there was some kind of security guarantee that would involve the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council, which include the U.S. and Russia. Russia wants to be part of it. They want to say in it. So what Zelensky has in mind, is not going to work. One thing I don't think I mentioned, that Reuters report said that they're also discussing like a 3-way agreement between the U.S., Russia, and Ukraine. That's something Russia could go for. I don't know, like when they say security guarantees, it could mean a lot of different things. It could mean like the Article 5 mutual defense guarantee that you get with NATO, or it could mean, guarantees of, from Russia that they wouldn't do something in these conditions, or, whatever. There's just like, it could mean a lot of different things. But what they're talking about right now is European troops to be the security guarantee, which is just really crazy because it puts them into potential direct conflict with Russia. And obviously that's not going to happen. And Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, said Thursday he accused the European countries who are pushing and insisting on the troop deployment of trying to undermine the peace progress, which, I mean, I think is certainly possible that this whole thing is, they're trying to make it fall apart by pushing for this troop deployment.